Powerful with Scott and Stacy, and we're finally on the air or on the stream now. I don't know what the heck was going on, but Restream was being nasty. It was being mean to us. So finally, we're up a few minutes late, and I apologize for that. But today, we wanted to talk about some kind of a little bit of a heavier subject than we normally touch on, but it's definitely valuable information, and that's really when you have someone close to you who is going through a lot of grief, and how you can be supportive to that person. And I think I've always found that it's a really fine line, and a difficult one to navigate too, because you don't know, a lot of times you don't know what the right thing to say is. You don't know if you're being too helpful, not enough. Like, are you being smothering? Are you being giving them enough space? Like all that kind of stuff. It's really hard to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And I remember back, I don't know if you remember these things when I guess when blogging was big and I mean, of course you remember these things, but I guess around the topic of like grief and so forth, people would be like, these are the top five things to do for somebody that's grieving. And then it's like the worst five things you can do. And while those I think were well intentioned and sometimes helpful, it never really took into account how everybody is different and
Right.
everybody processes things differently, you
Right.
know?
And
Yeah.
I've always felt the same way, that way about those articles that you see on like
Yeah.
BuzzFeed or some of
Yeah.
those,
Yeah. Yeah.
meme articles where it's like, you've been doing this wrong, how you're
Right.
supposed
Yeah.
to do this. And it's like, and it's usually some 20-year-old who now has a new idea about how something as age old as grieving should be approached. And it's like, oh, okay, because what? Because you're an influencer? That's why we should listen to you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of that is for clicks and visibility and
Sure.
ways to, right? That's all marketing. But yeah, the actual process is way more nuanced than you can get from a blog post. But I do believe one of the best things across the board is we're going to come back to it, is to do your own work, to be self-aware, to understand your own energy and working through your own blocks, because the deeper you go into work with yourself, the easier it is to pick up on the nuances of other people.
Sure.
Yeah, and then you pick that up energetically, intuitively, and then you trust in your responses, whatever that is, instead of looking to a script or like what to say or not to say. Because when you do that, you're still in your head. So even if you're saying the right thing, the quote right thing, whatever that is, you're if you're in your head and not in your heart, the message is it's not going to get through the way you want it to. It's not going to land because it needs to land in the other person's heart. So you need to be speaking from yours.
Yeah. That's the part, like, you really have to have a certain amount of emotional intelligence to
Yes.
to be able to do it properly. And that's not a dig at anyone who maybe has difficulty, navigating that, because it's not easy, and not everybody
Right.
has, like you said, everybody's different. Not everybody has the same level of emotional intelligence, and sometimes, maybe they've learned incorrectly, or they've learned from the wrong people. Some families deal with things differently, and
Right.
when you encounter that, and you're like, wow, you guys do this when this happens, that's so weird. But
Right.
that's normal to them. They're like, yeah, when somebody dies, we have a party and we do this and we do that. Like, even some cultures how they
Hmm.
deal with death and loss is like
Yep.
mind boggling to
Yep.
someone like me
To
or something
us.
in a different culture, you know. Um,
Yeah.
I've always consistently been had trouble. Some people thrive. I mean, look at people who
I thrive.
you do. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. Look at people who are in the funeral industry. They're
Hmm.
around death all the time, and maybe
Yep.
sometimes you can make an argument that perhaps they're callous or they're closed off to the emotions of it, or they're experts in how to deal with it
Hmm.
to a
Yeah.
point that you don't even realize. Like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that you would deal with it this way, but it actually, in their experience, they've gotten the best results out of. And I can't give you an example what that would be, but I've always had trouble. Always have. I never know what to do. I never know what to say. I'm always like, I actually actively avoid it if I can.
Most people do. I think
Yeah.
most people do. Yeah.
And I know that's kind of crappy. And if it's someone close to me, I wouldn't just abandon them if they were in that
Right.
time of need and stuff. But it's really difficult because they just don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And it's just like, can I go get you some food? I mean, that's like where my mind always go. Can I go
Yep.
get you
Which
some
is,
food, or do you need anything from your house, or do you want to just
yep.
go out for a walk, or just like kind
Yep.
of change the
It's
venue a little
that
bit?
simple, but it is that simple. And I think that's where people complicate it, thinking it needs to be some grand thing. But what it is just the fear of getting it wrong is so big that they don't do or offer anything. But well, that's just a fear around getting it wrong, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, if I don't say anything, then if I avoid it, then I can't get it wrong. So yeah, so I think we have to, in order to get good at anything, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to get it wrong, right? And that's really uncomfortable, especially around something so sensitive as grief, right? So I think, I don't know, for some reason it's almost like grief like brings out all our most like perfectionistic
Yeah.
qualities of like, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to fail at this because it is so big and it is so heavy and it is so important. So I think that's really what it is this basically fear of failure around saying or doing the wrong thing. But in fact, it's actually it is the simple things, around, yeah, bringing food, and but also being okay if I bring food and the person doesn't eat it, that's fine, right? It's also learning how to truly
Yeah.
give, right? Without expectation. I can offer, do you need anything from your house? If they say yes, you get it. If they say no, you don't. And then there's more obvious things like someone's lawn has to be mowed, so you can do that, right? So there's um like that probably is not going to get like a no, don't do that. But I think it's hard when people are rejected, like if they offer the food and the person says no, or do you want to go for a walk and the person says no, to go back to the agreements last week in the group. We talked about don't take things personally. So if you
Right.
make an offer and the person says no, to not take it personally like you've failed.
Right. It's just what
And
it's just
yeah,
they're just not ready for that. That's not something that they want right there. It doesn't mean that they don't appreciate the thought.
right.
And they have so many things to process that they're just they're not able to maybe convey the response that you're looking for. And I think ego has a lot to do with it too. When
Yeah.
I know that I've witnessed situations to where someone was grieving and someone wanted to do a bunch of stuff and the person said, no, you don't have to, that's actually not what I need right now. And the person got, like you said, don't take it personally, the person got offended and they turned it around and made it about them. And it was
But
like,
them, which is so
it was
terrible. Like
like,
that's
are you
probably if you,
kidding me?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
now you're going to make this about you,
right,
but there's some people that just don't know any other way than to make it about
yeah,
them.
about them. Exactly, which is why that's the work, that inner work, I think make is what really changes on how you support other people. right, and like this is how to be a supporter, this is how to be a coach, this is how to, be that rock for other people, or that leader that's developing people. So this is like so much of the core of my work, because it's the more you work on yourself and understanding your ego material, right, and how to not act from that and be aware of that, then that's how we avoid those mistakes and not make it um about ourselves, right? So the more cognizant you are of that, the more work you've done there, then it is easier, because really it's just learning how to give selflessly. And we struggle at that. We don't know how to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like that natural expectation, I guess, of I'm going to do this and I'm going to get something in return, whether it's a big hug or a thank you or a smile or, genuine over the top appreciation or even a gift in return. It's
Yeah.
that idea of doing it the opposite of selfless,
Yes.
expecting a
Mhm.
return on your recent investment. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. Yeah.
It's a tough one. It really is. And in the last 6 months or so, between working with you and working on other podcasts and different types of projects, that that theme of sort of seeing things from someone else's perspective before you offer your perspective to because if you do it right, you could maybe alter your own perspective in the process, where if you like, wow, I really did not I didn't think of it that way. We recorded a podcast yesterday and the four of us were analyzing one of these like true crime shows that was on Netflix, and we all were it was kind of interesting to think of each person's thought process going through this particular case and how they saw it. And there were some agreements, but there was a lot of variations that were just minute enough to make you go, wow, I didn't even consider that angle of it.
Mm.
And I don't know, I enjoy that part of discourse.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not the outcome that I want. Like
Right.
you go into something and you kind of like you have this agenda, whether you know it
Yeah.
or not. You have this agenda, and when
Right.
the agenda is derailed in some way, that could be very harmful to your ego, or that could just be like But I'm actually starting to enjoy that derailing for the most part, because it's like this is eye opening. This is really
Yeah.
about growth, which is
It
really, really
is.
hard for me. It's
it's
hard for me
it's
to grow.
uncomfortable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's hard for everybody to grow. If it's not hard, then they're not growing, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's kind of, so I've gotten to a place, luckily, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it for sure. I'm always still growing. But it felt, it was been eye-opening recently as I've been supporting my very good friend through her grief the past 5 days, and that I recognized that I didn't have an agenda, right? And I think this was really maybe for the first time there was no agenda, where it is just, I'm just okay, I'm just gonna show up at the hospital, right? And maybe a little bit of like, okay, yeah, I'll offer a walk, I'll offer, bring whatever, I'm just gonna show up, right? So just that trusting of self of I'm just gonna show up. And then it was like while I was there, like during the conversations, that the purpose, started to show itself, and I'm like, oh, this is my role here, right? Like it started to develop, and I would have never caught more of my purpose of being there if I was fixated in my agenda, right?
Hmm.
And So yeah, and I think that's with anything in life, not just with grief and what we're talking about here of, just going to just knowing that one next move without being so fixed on your agenda, and kind of letting the path reveal itself. And which is really scary, but so freeing and liberating. And how to live our lives that way, how to engage in relationships that way, how to build our businesses that way, of kind of like, okay, this is my next step. I might have like a vision of the future, but I'm going to trust in that and just let this unfold, each step at a time. And that's how we're actually present, right? And then we're not stuck in our heads. We're
Right.
present because we're allowing that next step, you
And it's
know?
interesting that you say trust, because I just read this morning. There's a new study in the Netherlands found that trust is the one trait that makes us happier as we get older. The more trust that we have in
Mm,
people, um,
mm,
actually makes us happier, and it builds upon itself. So when you trust someone, it makes you happy, and you want to trust them more, and you want to keep trusting them. I don't know, the nitty gritty of this study, um, but they said it holds true across all age groups,
mm.
making the biggest
Cultures.
difference for kids, teens, and seniors. So for those of us who are, you know, just adults, I guess it's whatever. But I just thought that was interesting, because when you said trust, and it got me thinking of what is it that you should do if you're going into this completely blind, and you're like, I have no idea how to support someone who's grief. The first thing you said, show up, right? Just show up, just
Mhm,
be there, and don't have a list of things that you want to do or that
mhm.
you think you need to do. Just show up, and then listen.
Right. And then the path will be
And
revealed, right?
right.
If you just show up and you listen because you're not fixated on your agenda and your own needs and your own ego, then your purpose will be revealed to you. And that's just factual. Like, right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's like learning to silence ourselves enough to listen. But because people tend to be so uncomfortable, they can't sit in that silence, to listen and allow the path to be revealed, because we're in that, like, I gotta do something, I gotta go, I got you, right. And because if we're not able to tolerate our own emotions, then that's going to look like that, versus I'm going to be calm, I'm going to listen, and I trust, um my path will be revealed. But yeah, that's an interesting study that you bring up. And I always tell people too, it's less about trusting other people and more about trusting yourself.
Mm,
And yeah, because it's the ego attaches to needs and stuff with other people. But when we trust ourselves, when we have our own backs at the end of the day, then it's going to be easier to take those risks, um, which then ultimately does develop more trust interpersonally as well. But I believe it's a intra-personal process to do first.
right. And
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea, like um I don't know what the word is, but I'm not telling people that you're wrong by how you approach things. It's just
Oh,
advice. It's just advice. If if you're going into it with the intention of helping someone get through something, and you have a list of things that you think will help them, I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad. I would just say put that in your back pocket first. And
right. It's an option.
yeah, and go in with an open mind, go in without an agenda, go in, just be there, listen, and then see. And then maybe, it'll present himself like, oh wow, I'm kind of hungry. That's good, because I was just gonna suggest that I go make you a casserole, you know,
Right.
or something like that. So, well, this is a
Yeah.
really great discussion. Once again, I gotta get in and get out because of the schedule today, but yeah, I think it was very useful. Sorry to hear about your friend's situation. But if there's one thing that can be said about a terrible situation, at least she has a friend like you to be there for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we could all be so lucky to have a friend like Stacy Steinmiller. RadicalLifeCoach.com. Huh?
It feels like a song or something.
Yeah, I know.
Like you're about to like go into like a kid's show song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where's my acoustic guitar? RadicalLifeCoach.com for Stacy Steinmiller and all her awesome coaching ways. Rockvox.com if you want to do a podcast and all the other stuff that I do. And how's that for a sales pitch? We are out of here. We'll catch you next Wednesday on Positively Powerful. Later, dudes. Where's the music? It's gone. I can't find it. Oh my God, I seriously can't. Oh, there it is.
Take a deep breath and remember who you are.
Nothing but professional.
Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby. You're a star.
Thanks, Matt.